All right, we the people, are we tired of this yet? I am making this video, no edits, no nothing. Okay, this is very important information, and I am honestly tired of seeing people argue over basic civics principles that should have been covered when you were in school. I don't know what else to say, okay? Some people on the left, including people on my side, I'm saying, are completely losing the plot in terms of what is actually productive and what will prevent disaster from happening, to be frank, okay? This is not a call to violence. Never was. Don't hurt people. This is a call to actually consider the founding principles of our country and what the founding fathers literally wrote down. It's not hard. Okay? This is time for a civics lesson, and I promise you it's relevant. If you're feeling scared, stick with me. If not, and you don't want to watch me ramble, go away. The social contract. You may or may not have heard this idea in your history class. Probably not. It was came up with, I don't know what the right grammar is there. The person who made it up was a European by the name of John Locke. So this was like hundreds of years before colonial times. But our interpretation in the American legal doctrine and all this other stuff, like the Federalist Papers and shit, all the writings they did to make the country a thing, say that the social contract, or the philosophical idea of the social contract, is that governments must have the consent or implicit agreement of the people they're governing to be seen as legitimate or enforce any of the rules they're making. Okay. So you're like, what the hell does that even mean? Valid. That's a lot of words and not very helpful in a practical sense. What does this look like in real life? We'll give an example, right? So I am the government over here, and say person B over here or whatever is the governed or the person under the rule of law. Okay? So the way it looks usually is the government does things and we either like vote them out, do whatever, like campaign, fundraise for different candidates and try to get different policy in place. Well, what happens when the government just kind of does something outside of the confines of all of that stuff, right? So say the government comes in and it's like, today we actually need every person who has ever had a walking stick and who currently has a walking stick to turn them into the federal government. We need them now. Okay? This is not an option. You must do this. Person B has 3 options. They can either say, yes, I consent. I'm going to give you my walking stick, and thus the power of the government that they said, you must give me the walking stick, is legitimized. You can say, no, I need this walking stick. I do not want you to take it. You cannot have it. And then you end up facing potential repercussions, like illegalities, violence from the state, whatever it looks like. Okay, but there is a third option that is almost always the most frequently used one in America, which is they do some crazy shit and then people just sit there staring at them blankly. Okay, so the government comes in and says, can I have your walking stick? It is mandatory that you give me your walking stick. And person B stands there and does not say anything. They don't do anything. Okay, just nothing. They don't take any action. What does government do? Well, this is mandatory and you're not saying no, so we take it by force. Okay, regardless of whether person B agrees with the possibility of such a thing going on, the morals, the philosophy of the policy, whatever, they let the government take their walking stick by virtue of not acting. They implicitly or subconsciously consented to an overreach by government by saying, yes, it's okay, you can do this, I will not act out when you behave like this. Okay. Okay, and act out, again, does not mean violence. It does not mean violence. It means acting out of the confines of institutions. Okay, so here we are. We have all that nonsense. I have to go to my iPad notes because let's be really frank, okay? I want to make sure that I get this idea clear. I don't even know if you can freaking see me in frame right now. The idea was, with the colonists, okay, if you remember, They were throwing tea in the river because they didn't like their fucking taxes, okay? In their minds, that was enough to warrant overthrowing their entire government. Which I'm not saying, there was more to that, right? Like, that's a very large oversimplification, but it was taxes. They did not like their taxes. We are at a point where our government is going so far beyond those consequences. We are talking about loss of civilian, human, U.S. citizen life, people around the world, whatever. Okay, so clearly, this is a little bit more of a serious situation in terms of the social contract being broken because they are acting violently against their own constituents. Okay, key point is that the passivity and the standing by is what they hope you will do to make sure that they have as little opposition as possible. They are thrilled every time a left-leaning person decides that they're going to operate within the confines of this social contract, okay, because it means that the government that is just running free, running wild, breaking laws, can do whatever they want and not be stopped outside of the confines of that tiny little box. Okay, whether you agree with a policy morally or not, saying nothing is consenting to it under the eyes of the social contract. Okay? Let's touch upon an even more meta concept. I don't know if any of you have noticed this, but laws are made up by people. We make them up. They're made up, okay? They don't just like exist. You don't come into this world. It feels very permanent, I know, because it's hard to conceptualize systems that we aren't a part of, okay? But this has not been, like, America and American government systems have not been around since humans have been around, okay? We invented it. We made it up. We can fix it. We can change it. We can ruin it, okay? It's very complicated. They are self-set rules. Okay, it's basically, I don't know. I use the word, they're not indefinite and not immortal. Okay, and I think that that's a really good point. If anybody knows anything about the original ratification of the Constitution, which I'm going to go deal with, okay? I should have brought this over here before. Y'all remember the Articles of Confederation? You know, the whole other federal document that we had before it was so bad that people rioted and then they had to redo the Constitution and just change all the laws. Yeah, that literally happened. They just make it up. They literally just make it up as they go. That's the whole point, okay? The Supreme Court's power. Check the freaking Constitution. Not that I'm going to read legal jargon to you, but very little mention of the Supreme Court in the actual Constitution itself. And the person who made the Supreme Court what it is was literally the first Chief Justice who was like, I think that this system needs a power to have. I will write into law that this is our power. And then everyone just abided by that. Okay, they're just like, this precedent makes sense, so we're gonna do it. Okay, we have situations like President Jackson coming up against the very same Chief Marshal, okay, who literally, by his own doctrine, he made up the doctrine like Supreme Courts have authority over whether things are constitutional or not. That is not in the Constitution. He made that up. And then he said Andrew Jackson's attack on Native communities that led to the Trail of Tears was illegal and unconstitutional. And Andrew Jackson said, with what army, babe? With what army? And proceeded to do it anyway because the courts don't have an enforcement arm, okay? Right outside that social contract. Shattering it, changing it, breaking it, making it something new, okay? What else do we have? Multiple times, parties have fallen in the American system. There is a reason we do not vote for Federalists or Whigs or whatever the fuck anymore, okay? And it is because those two party systems, again, we've always had a pass the poll system, almost always in American history, okay? I should be clear. Stop. Pause. We've always had a pass the poll system. There was like one election, and it was the first election where Washington was like, don't do political parties, and then everybody was like, we're gonna do it anyway. Okay, so we've always had two parties in this country kind of vying for power at the federal level. That changes still. It's not even a static, like people think Republicans and Democrats are like, that's just like what America is. That's not freaking true. If you want to vote for a different party, there are historical precedents for like tearing down the pre-existing parties and reorganizing in a way that is more reflective of the actual electorate. So I don't understand why everyone is acting like we're just like stuck. We're just stuck, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? The TLDR of all of this And again, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes because I'll lose my shit if I don't. Okay, I want you to go and read the Federalist Papers before they take them off of the internet, because they will try to do that. Okay, the Federalist Papers saw politics in every aspect of life and did not consider politics to be only a tool of US institutions. Okay, the Founding Fathers were playing a metagame that people are not understanding or contextualizing because they don't understand what it looks like to have an unsafe America, honestly, okay? The Constitutional Convention was built for the explicit purpose of preventing minor factions from taking over a majority of the US. I'm so sweaty, I don't even know what's going on, okay? The truth of the matter is, a long time ago, there's arguments for when this started, okay, because honestly, I'm not a historian. I know enough about politics, I have a degree in it, but it's arguable when this obstructionism started. But the GOP has, for a very, very, very long time, been organizing and acting outside of the confines of the social contract and succeeding because the Democratic Party will not stop them, and liberals will not stop them, and will not get in the way of the institutions. The institutions are more important than the actual act of governance itself. Okay, I'm going to demonstrate to you what it is exactly that I mean. We're going to erase this. I'm sorry, this is going to take me eons. This is going to take me eons, but we're going to get there. Okay, we're going to draw our box because I keep telling you about this box. And I want you to understand what this box contains. Okay? This is the social contract. Terrible writing. The box is the social contract. Inside of it, we have political actions that are taken within existing institutions and laws. Outside of it, we have political actions that do not fit into those categories. So let's start. What's inside US institutions, right? So obviously the US institutions themselves, we have those. We have some form of protest because that's a protected right under our Constitution, although that's questionable because that usually only allows for nonviolent protest, obviously. Okay, so there's arguments whether that's actually an institutional procedure or not. We have rule of law. Okay, and like court, judicial authority, you know what I mean? So if the courts say something, the other branches of government listen, even though they can't do anything about it. Calling your reps. Calling reps. Okay, we have fundraising for candidates. Voting and elections in general. We have lovely institutions that protect our ability to participate in politics, at least for right now. And most importantly, we have bipartisanship. Okay. All this stuff in here is the Democratic playbook. And by Democratic, I mean Democrats, okay? Not democracy, the Democratic Party. A long time ago, okay? A long time ago, Republicans decided, as a policy platform, they were going to start doing things outside of this social contract, test the waters, and see basically how far they could go in terms of breaking the law and regular institutional standards. So what's going on out here? Okay, we're breaking the law. Breaking law. We're acting with violence. Okay, and terrorism, potentially. Not to say that this is only Republicans too, because the longer this goes on, the more people start acting outside of the social contract on all sides. Okay, they feel put down by the system and feel like they're not being listened to. So people start coming out here instead of relying on this stuff. Okay, this is kind of the same thing as vigilante justice. You get what I'm saying. We have mutual aid and local community building. Okay, We have class solidarity or populism. Sorry about my handwriting. There's nothing I can do. We have insurrection or even revolution. I will say civil war more so because people throw the word revolution around a lot. Okay, revolution. We have war, again, with the caveat that sometimes that is within the confines of the institutions. Obstructionism over party lines. And most importantly, manipulating law-institutions to fail. Okay? Undermining law and institutions is a key aspect of this. Now, we're looking at all this stuff, right? Okay. Remember, we're operating in the confines of the social contract. For most of American history, I shouldn't really even say most of American history, since like the 50s, since like World War II, okay, barring minority groups, people have operated under the understanding and assumption that if they stayed within this box right here, they would be safe and they would be able to live a relatively normal, happy, free life, a life of liberty and the pursuit of happiness. And that is just not what's happening anymore. Okay, we've been dealing with this for decades of the main two-party system slowly eroding all of the options within this box. We are now literally at the point where Republicans are basically only operating outside of this box because they are letting Trump do whatever he wants. It does not matter what he does. They're not bringing it to the table in terms of breaking the law. Okay, and right now the Supreme Court has decided he has presidential immunity. Okay, so that's going back to manipulating law and institution to fail. Okay, liberals are stuck inside this box. They always have been and they always will be. And it's coming from a place of believing American institutions to be immortal or incapable of being torn apart. Okay? The GOP destroyed the social contract a long, long time ago. Okay? They've been doing explicit obstruction of all levels of government. And it's working, okay? Because the Democrats do not fight back. Instead of thinking smart and outside of the confines of the rule of law, which is the box that the founding fathers created for us and then gave us permission to break in their writings, okay, they decide that they are going to claim the GOP isn't playing fair, okay, and then expect them to agree to the rules of civility and like come back inside the box, even though they've been giving them permission to do this entire time. Okay, obviously some of these things, like mutual aid, that applies to people, not the government itself, but you understand the principle. All the GOP wants, and all of the fascists within that party, want you to stay inside this box and not think critically, not think outside the box, not consider what the actual political philosophy of America is. Which is, if you don't like the government, change it. Literally do something about it, okay? They love the fact that they can take political action at any turn, at all times, and cause chaos in any way physically possible, and they will not be stopped. Because their only weapon and the only tooth that's being used to fight this are tools that will never work because they're playing a different game by different rules. Okay? It's like playing chess with checker pieces. That doesn't work. The reason the Democrats lost, okay, among many other things, because I'm not about to sit here being like, an entire electorate did not make a decision universally. Everyone had their reasons for voting the way that they did, and they're separate for each individual person. Okay, but I can tell you one of the main reasons that the Democrats lost the election is because they refused to stand outside of this box. And they put the pressure on people who do not have the resources or the capabilities to rely on these institutions and do this instead of doing the actual functional, potentially progress-based movements on the outside or outside the confines of the social contract. To them, it is more important that you listen to the rule of law than have a safe and happy life. Truthfully, they would rather you be complicit and comply by rules than have a safe and happy life. Okay? They refuse to make bold choices. I'm like out of the frame here, I don't even know. They refuse to make bold choices, some of which there are plenty of historical precedent for. Okay, you can look at the history around the Civil War and all of the crazy like constitutional crises elements that were added there and how Abraham Lincoln handled all of that stuff. Okay, we have examples of FDR literally blowing through. Again, I mentioned the Supreme Court is not really, there's no number of Supreme Court justices in the Constitution. So FDR was just like, fuck it, I'll just add like 10 of them. Not literally. 10 is not the real number. All of this is political tools that the Democrats have chosen not to utilize. Every time they complain to you, you are not voting, you're not doing enough, you're not fundraising enough, they are saying our power, which we have used and wielded in the past in the way that we are not doing now, is not strong enough to stop this, when it is literally the only option they have. They will either continue playing by different rules, or they will learn to play by new rules in a way that is moral, honorable, and doesn't cause harm to people for no reason. Okay? I'm going to be honest with you. What I have seen from the Democratic Party is that they are willing to roll over and let Trump act like Hitler did during the Weimar Republic. I don't think that I will ever be voting for a Democrat again for as long as I live. And that is coming from somebody who really, 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 really cares about politics, to say the least. Enough so that I paid money for a 4-year degree in it. Okay, but I've really had enough of this because, like I said, they're playing chess, you're playing checkers. Why? Okay? If you are somebody who is one of their constituents, God, my poor plant, look at me taking bubbles down because I'm so heated. If you're one of the people who thinks that this is what you have to do, only the things inside of the box to save America, and you were complaining about all the other people who voted any other way, the founding fathers would not be impressed by you going around saying, you're a meanie and you did this wrong, and then curling up in a ball and dying. They gave us very explicit instructions on what to do in a situation like this, and you're ignoring them. So that's on you, babe. That's on you. If the Democrats ever want to win again, so help me fucking God. If you want to win, you will start playing the game of US politics the way it's been being played by the other side for like 30 fucking years, okay? We are going to operate outside of the confines of the reigning rule of law, okay? This is about to get a lot weaker. It's already happening. That we can see. They're just like pushing through executive order after executive order. The judges cannot operate that quickly. That's not how courts are designed. It's literally on purpose to override all of these systems. Okay? Simply sitting inside the box and doing nothing other than what you have been doing is cementing and absolutely guaranteeing a fascist takeover. Absolutely. Unquestionably. Okay, stop giving them permission to steamroll everything that you believe in because you want to be seen as respectable and you want to stay in this box of comfortability. Americans and America is founded on thinking outside of that box. I am getting heated. And I'm getting heated because people do not want to operate on the principles that this country was founded on. I will not sit here and say that America is a good country. I don't even think that we abide by our own rules and standards. Okay? But we have very clear instructions about how to move forward. Always have. It's been there since the beginning of the country. And now here we are, sitting by and letting them do whatever the fuck they want. Does that sound right to you? Okay, I think that the founding fathers would be ashamed. They were pissed over taxes, and people are losing their lives. Okay, stop giving them permission to steamroll human life. Enough of this, and more of this. Thank you.